Hi guys. Okay, screen here. Okay, so last week you said that uh, the we mentioned Bar Pedaya, who said that Hamachalo is Chalal, if the person who comes to Michal is not Michalo, how could this person be Michalo? Mitchalel, how could that person be Michalo? And then we do spoke of Rabbi Yochanan Sheker. Sheker was my Rasha. Um, Uh, so, and then we said how you can only have one punishment, not two punishments. And I believe we're up to Bar Pedoya Amar Hu Yonus. Okay, so this is talking about the punishment for obviously of a Rotzech B'Shogeg, somebody who killed inadvertently, who of course is supposed to go into Golus. So the Zomim don't go into Golus, right? So Bar Pedoya Amar Hunus below Zomimov. He goes to Golus, not people who were Zomim, who plotted. Okay? Very straight up. The Drasha, who Janus? Only goes only he goes to Golus, not anybody else. Next. The Ein Mishalmi Kol Ksuva. There's the end of the Mishnah, which is actually the second Mishnah in the Bavli, says that they don't pay the entire Ksuva. They obviously because they didn't cause the loss of the entire Ksuva, because he might never have to pay out the whole Ksuva, right? So therefore, if they pay, literally Tovas Sanoa means the value, or the good, but here means the value of the benefit. So what does it mean, the value of the benefit? It means what they would have, when you take a gamble and you invest in something and there's a chance you won't see a return on your investment, that's not called paying a full amount. That's called paying the Tovas Anoa. You're paying for the good of the potential benefit you're going to receive, right? And therefore, Kama Ketzad Omer Kama Omer says Kama Dam Rotzitim B'Ksubasha Shosu. How much I want to pay for the ksuba of this woman? Shema Tamus B'Chai Bala. Maybe she's going to die in her husband's lifetime, but that's no good for me. I'm going to lose it. It should be a Shena Bala, because then her husband's going to get the ksuva, right? Or maybe her husband's going to die before her. And then she's going to get her ksuba, and I'm going to inherit her ksuba. So I pay a very straightforward. In the Bible, there are all the three shitas: Shamin, Ba, the Baila, Ba, Ksubasa. Shamin straightforward. You pay how much he would pay in the marketplace to buy a gamble at getting the price of the ksuba. Okay, let's go on to the next Mishnah. Mina Arbish Ploshu Chayav. Chaver Elav Zuz. He's chayav to spend $1,000 on Nasi Namid Kambad Shloshim Yom. The agent say he has to pay within 30 days. He says, no, I don't have to pay for 10 years. Only Kambadam Rutsa Litim Elav Zuz Biyodov. So we estimate how much we want to pay in order to keep $1,000 in his hands. Between 30 days, having to return them in 30 days, as opposed to return them in 10 years. Obviously, a person would pay much more money to have access to the $1,000 for 10 years than just having for 30 days. Now, there's a little bit of a problem here, of course, because that is ribbis. The money you pay for holding on to money for a longer time is ribbis. It's interest, but it doesn't matter because here you're not paying interest. You're reckoning how much interest it would be worth, and that's what the Adam have to pay, because that's the value they wanted to cause a loss to the person against whom they're testifying. What he would have paid if he would have paid interest, which he's not paying, but he would have paid interest to hold on to a loan for an extra 9 years and 11 months. Okay. Meet him on a beach ploni. Shuchav chaver masayim zuz. He owes his friend 200 zuz. Nim to zomim, and they found to be zomim. Lokin u'mishalmim. So this first Tana, the Rabbi Meir holds, you get Makkos and you also pay. Shloshem v'il they Makkos yidei tashlun. There's two issues here. Lo sana b'yachlayit shaker. That's for the Ikha Makkos. And kasher zomam, you have to pay money. Divrei Meir. Look, if you pay, you don't get malchus. You only one, not the other. Similar idea. They testify that Ruvain was chayav malchus, and it turns out they're oyim zomim. So, according to Rabbi Meir, there are two prohibitions, right? Lokim shmonim, mishum lo sana b'recha shoker, mishum asis lo kasher zoma la'as l'sochiv. One because of the lo sana, because of the other kasher zoma. Divrei Meir. Chachamim ain't looking l'araboim. Again, you only get one penalty, not a double penalty. Don't get penalized twice. Okay? So, Yerushalmi Makkos. The aid and zomi divide up the payment of money, but not the payment of where they have to get malchus. Okay, it said how so he do shuchayev l'chavero. They testify his chayev to his friend malchus aboim. I'm sorry, Masayim Zuz, 200 Zuz, Nimsu Zomim, they found the 8 Zomim, the Shalshlim B'nei, they distribute the payment B'nei among them. He who Shuchai Malchus Aboim, they testify that he is Chai Malchus, Nimsu Zomim, Kol Echad Lo Karaboim, each and every person gets 40 lashes. Okay? So, Rav Amram Bar Masla B'Shem Rab both said, Hamanas Amavas Chavir Amnash Lo Litovo. Somebody who loans his friend, and he's not going to demand the loan. In other words, any loan, I can demand it back. I'm the malva. I loaned you money, right? So I made a condition, even though I can demand it back, I'm not going to. So it says here. Shvius Misham Toso. Shvius cancels the loan. So it's interesting because the Shaitor Eretz who I don't want to learn like, puts in the word Ein Shvius Misham, Ein Shvius Misham Toso. That Shvius is not Mishamet. Because a loan is only considered a loan if I can demand it. A loan which is not in demand, which I can't demand, the Shaitor understands is dormant. If it's dormant, so then Shvius doesn't cancel it. Shvius doesn't cancel it. But most of obviously that's not the case we have in the Gemara here. The version we have in front of us, the straightforward version, is that Shvius does cancel it. So the question is, why does Shvius cancel it if it is dormant? I can't demand the loan. Let me elaborate on that. Shvius, which the Torah says, when Shemitah comes, it tells the malva you can't demand the loan. Can't demand it. You have to. You can't go and knock on his door and ask for the loan back. From here on in, from the time Shemitah, at the end of Shemitah, this coming Rosh Hashanah, cancels the debt. That's it. You can't go and demand it. So the assumption is, okay, fine. What if I anyway promised I'm not going to demand it? So maybe Shemitah is not mishamet it. So the Gemara says here, no, Shemitah is mishamet it. You know why? So the Achronim explain, Mr. Radbaz in Hilchos Shemitah, he says that even though I said I can't demand it, but whenever the borrower sees me in the street, he says, "Oi, that's the guy I owe money to," and the borrower feels guilty about it, and he feels I really better plan to pay up at some point. So it's a fascinating idea. He calls it Nogus Me'atzma. It says by Shemitah, lo tigos, don't go and don't try and collect. But so okay, any loan which so that means a loan which I can't collect, will not collect. But even a loan which is so to speak dormant, I promised I'm not going to try and collect it. Doesn't matter because anytime psychologically, anytime the lova sees the malva, he feels I owe the guy money. I have to pay back at some point. So therefore comes along Ravam and Mamas Shem Rav. And they say, even though you promise not to collect it, it doesn't matter. You're still a malva. Ultimately, the lova feels guilty when he sees you. So therefore, Shemitah cancels the loan. Okay? That's he says, even though I'm not Shlo Tovo, Shemitah Misham Toso, Shemitah cancels the loan. Okay? So the Gemara asks, but, didn't we learn Shochet is a part of the Chilka B'Rosh Hashanah. Somebody who slaughters a cow and divides it up on Rosh Hashanah. So now, what's going on here? Let's see the Pnei Moshe. Vatninan Sham Masholis Bar B'Shvius Chilka Loikim B'Yom Rosh Hashanah Shemotzoi Shvius. So this is back in the days when Rosh Hashanah was not like we have it today. They don't really have Rosh Hashanah. 2 days Rosh Hashanah, it's Aleph and Beis Tishrei. But once upon a time, when the Beis Hamikdash was still standing, so then when there's 2 days Rosh Hashanah, it was Lamed Elul and Aleph Tishrei. Not Aleph and Beis Tishrei, but Lamed Elul and Aleph Tishrei. So now, when does Rosh Hashanah, when does Shemitah take effect? Takes effect as Rosh Hashanah begins, as Aleph Tishrei begins. The first day Tishrei begins in the evening. That's when Rosh Hashanah cancels all loans. The Rosh Hashanah of the 8th year, as it begins, cancels all outstanding loans. Fine? Okay. So, we turned on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, which turned out to be Lamed Elul. I slaughtered a cow, and I distributed the meat from the cow to the people who needed meat for Yom Tov. They owe me money, right? Because I distributed them pieces of meat. Now they owe me money. So I'm the butcher, right? So again, I distributed to customers Yom Rishon Shel Rosh Hashanah Motzei Shvius. On the first day of Rosh Hashanah of the right of Shvius, if it became a leap month, that turned out that Elul had the extra day, and the first day of Rosh Hashanah was actually turned out to be the 30th day of Elul. So it comes out that the first day when it was divided out, it was actually a weekday. So then, Mishamit, I can never collect the money which they owe me for the meat, because it became a loan. They owe me the money, and that evening, as the second day of Rosh Hashanah begins, which is really Aleph Tishrei, those loans are canceled. I can never collect, right? So the and it causes, and the Shemitah negates the loan at the end of the year. Bimlav ain't mishamet. Okay, so the if not, it's not mishamet. In other words, if it only be 1 day Rosh Hashanah, if it didn't turn out to be a leap year, and back then it was either 1 or 2 days, Lamed Elul and Aleph Tishrei, or just Aleph Tishrei, then of course it's already after Shemitah was over. So then I can still collect. So it depends if there's 2 days Rosh Hashanah or 1 day Rosh Hashanah, whether I can collect the money from my customers who got the meat from me. Okay? So let's go back tomorrow. But then has shochet besapora v'chilka b'Rosh Hashanah, and divided up on Rosh Hashanah. Umar Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Yehudi Umar Rabbi Yehudi, and Rabbi Lazar says it's Rabbi Yehuda. What's Rabbi Yehuda? So again, let's see the Pnei Moshe over here. V'amar Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Yehudi Umukil Asam Rabbi Lazar le'el l'hai masnisin. Rabbi says l'hai masnisin Rabbi Yehuda. Damshav masnisin d'leel says before that kovas chanus the savi rabbanon ein the eina mishametes. If Rabbanan hold, if a store credit is not canceled by Shemitah, whereas if I sell you, I'm a grocery store, I sell you something on credit, you owe me the money, right? Shemitah is not mishamit. It's not a true loan. I never loaned you money. I sold you an object. Now you owe me the money, but you owe me the payment. So therefore, Rabbanan hold, Shemitah doesn't cancel that. So if I have a bill in the store, so then I still have to pay that even after Shemitah. Shemitah doesn't cancel that loan. Okay? That is Rabbanan, right? So there, so Rabbi Yehuda, it's not going to be the way of doing a loan. This way, Rishon Mishamit. Rishon, he says that each bill, as you get a new bill, becomes a loan. In other words, if I went in today and bought a chocolate bar, so that's still called Hakofas Chanus. It's called buying on credit. But tomorrow, I go and buy another chocolate bar. So now the new chocolate bar is called buying on credit, but the old chocolate bar is called now a loan. Now it's the last transaction is always called buying on credit, according to Rabbi Yehuda, and that one Shemitah doesn't cancel. But any prior transaction is called a loan, and Shemitah cancels the prior transactions. Okay, so as it says, as long as it's the first transaction, so therefore it's considered to be hakavas chanus, and Shemitah is not mishamit. Okay, but once it's a second transaction, so then Shemitah cancels it, right? So now, the Gemara there says that again, Rosh Hashanah, right? Shemitah cancels it. Okay, Umar Rabbi Yehuda, right? And Rabbi Yehuda says it's Rabbi Yehuda who says that Kavas Chanus, as long as it's the second loan, as long as it's older loan, it can be canceled. But the question like this: Royal Tova Rosh Hashanah. Okay, let's say it becomes a loan. Fine, but let's say you give me twice in the same day. And the first one now is already as a loan. Because the second one is the one on credit, and the first one is already a loan. But still, you can't demand the loan back on Rosh Hashanah. Right? You can't demand the loan back because you're not allowed to hand the money on Rosh Hashanah. So how could Shemitah cancel this debt? If it has to be that it's suitable to be demanded. We just said a regular loan, even if it's a loan which I promised not to demand, but the very fact that I'm there and the lover feels guilty, didn't pay up, it's as if I demand it. But here, it's Rosh Hashanah. I can't demand the loan back. I'm not demanding, he's not allowed to pay. So why does Shemitah cancel the loan? Shemitah can only cancel a loan which is due, which I have to pay. And I don't have to pay because it's Rosh Hashanah. Okay, that's a very good question, right? So the Gemara says, I'll tell you, Kai the Ma Rabbi Ba b'Shem Rabbi Zira. It's like Rabbi Boss named Rabbi Zira. Now here, the name Moshe changes the girsa. If you take a look at Bnei Moshe, he says down here, over here, Mikevan Shu Roy Litovo. No, he takes out the She'eno. He changes it to Shehu. Here in our Gemara it says Mikevan Kevan She'eno Roy Litovo. No, he changed. Moshe changed it to, and that's actually what it says in the Gemara in Shvius there. Not like our Gemara Makkos. Gemara in Shvius says a different girsa. Says that Mikevan Shu Roy Litovo, since he's suitable to demand it, Kimi again, Shu Roy Lamino. Not Kimi Shein Roy Lamino, it's Kimi Shu Roy Lamino. The Kevon, Shehu Roy Lamino, Kimi Shu Roy Litin Lomos. Okay? Kevon Shu Roy Lamino, Kimi Shu Roy Litin Lomos, kind of holy of a Roy Litin Lomos, Lonasa Nasis Rishon and Malva. Now, the way it's Bnei Moshe's learning it basically means, well, it really isn't Rosh Hashanah. It's not Rosh Hashanah, right? It turns out, because remember, in the old days, the only way it became to use Rosh Hashanah is if the first day was not really Rosh Hashanah. It was the 30th day of Elul. We thought it might become Rosh Hashanah. You know what I thought it might become? In the old days, just explain a little bit better. They waited that day. They waited all day to see if Adam would come. If Adam would come, then they would make it retroactively Rosh Hashanah. It'd be one day Rosh Hashanah. If Adam didn't come all day, he only came after Mincha. So then they said, "No, what? Tomorrow is really Rosh Hashanah. We're going to finish this day as if it's holy, because we started holy, but really tomorrow is Rosh Hashanah." So therefore, it turned out that really that day was Rosh Hashanah. It wasn't Rosh Hashanah at all. We acted as if it's Rosh Hashanah because we didn't have a choice. Because we were expecting Adam might come, and therefore we had to expect maybe it is really Rosh Hashanah. And once Adam didn't come by Mincha time, they tell us, well, whether Adam come or not, consider Rosh Hashanah, but keep tomorrow as the main Rosh Hashanah. But really, the first day is not Rosh Hashanah at all. So in theory, although you thought it was Rosh Hashanah and therefore you couldn't demand it, that's not because you couldn't demand it. It's just because you didn't know that it really wasn't Rosh Hashanah. Or Chachamim said, you know what? Act as if it's Rosh Hashanah. But it's not really Rosh Hashanah. Really, Rosh Hashanah is the next day. Nowadays, when we keep 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, Aleph and Beis Tishrei, they're both Rosh Hashanah definitely. Because that's the Kanas Chachamim. But back then, the Kanas Chachamim is not that they're both definitely Rosh Hashanah, but keep the first day as if it's Rosh Hashanah, because Adam might come, and if they don't come after Mincha, keep it as if it's Rosh Hashanah anyway. But really, the next day is Rosh Hashanah. So therefore, you really could have demanded the loan. You didn't know you could have demanded the loan because you didn't know what was going to happen. But you could have demanded the loan, and since you could have demanded the loan, really you're trusting him to pay back, right? You're trusting him to pay back the money. The Malvis trusting him to pay back the money, and therefore, if it's a regular loan. Again, he's trusting him to pay back the money that he thought he couldn't actually collect because of Rosh Hashanah. Turns out it's not Rosh Hashanah, but he didn't know he wasn't able to collect because didn't know on time that's not Rosh Hashanah. So therefore, okay, he couldn't collect on a technicality, but really it's a valid loan. So that's why Shemitah's Mishamit did. So the way we just learned it, it says 4 times. Right? So we changed all 4 of those from Mikavan She'eno to Kavan Shehu. But the truth is, you can really you can learn it. You can learn it. You can learn it differently. Also, you can really learn it without changing the girsa and the way the girsa is in front of us. And the thing is that then it would come out like Rabbanon, and and say that it's really and it's going to be kafas chanus, and that's it's not mishamit. So I'm going to give you a different way of learning now. Okay, till now we're learning it's like Rabbi Yehuda, and really hakafas chanus is mishamit, even though it's a store bill. As long as it's the second bill, it's mishamit because it's like a loan, and therefore we have to explain that here and here why is it mishamit? It's mishamit because it is a it's mishamit because really you could have theoretically demanded it. The fact that you didn't demand it is because you thought it was Rosh Hashanah or you had to conduct it as Rosh Hashanah, but really it's a loan. Therefore, Shemitah Shemi mishamit it. Okay, that's going to do some Rabbi Yehuda that there are store credits which are actually loans, but there's another way of learning it. So and this way of learning it, if you don't change any of the Einos to Shahus, you just leave them as is. Okay, so Kaidamar Rabbi Ba b'Shem Rabbi Zira. Again, I'm starting over here. Mikema she'eno roy l'tovo. Since it is Rosh Hashanah, and you can't demand it, right? Because it is Rosh Hashanah. Kimishu. Actually, I see. No, you know what? Next one that we do have to change. According to this, I just noticed that at least 2 of them you do have to change. But let's try it. Okay, so let's try it this way anyway. Since you can't demand the money from him because you're trusting him. Okay, so this one I didn't change. You can't demand him. Yeah, you have to trust him because you have to wait. The Kavan and this one also I have to change. Shehu roy lamino, since you have to trust him. Kami she'eno roy litain lomos, right? Since you have to trust him, he can't. It's not. He can't actually pay back. So so this would be going actually explain like Rabbanon why this store credit is actually not something which can be which Shemitah can be mishamit. We're just saying we're trying to explain before by changing all of them to she'enos to saying that it's going like Rabbi Yehuda and explain according to Rabbi Yehuda that it is mishamit because it really would be royal tovo. You could claim it's just that you made a mistake. Thursday Rosh Hashanah, but if you want, you can explain it like Rabbanan and say no, really only change 2 of the she'enos to whose, and then say it's explaining that since you can't collect them today, therefore you're trusting him. It's not like a real loan. So it's not like a real loan. So therefore Shemitah is not going to cancel it. But now that I'm sorry, I think I apologize for giving that second approach because I see it's much more difficult. The second approach because really once you're changing, why not change all of them? In other words, if you're going to go to the Gemara and Shmitas and say all of them should be shehus instead of she'enos, so therefore, really, it's difficult to say, well, change only half of them and not all of them. So I'm going to stick with the first way I was learning and say that it's going like Rabbi Yehuda, and saying that it's trying to explain why Shemitah is mishamit even though you can't collect on Yontif, And it's saying the reason why Shemitah Yerushalmi you can't collect on Yom Tov is because you thought you can't collect. You thought you had to trust him, but you were wrong because it was actually Rosh Hashanah. It was actually a weekday. So let's go. Let's read that way again. Okay, we're changing all of them. Okay, right? Since it's suitable, since you could have commanded, had you known it wasn't Rosh Hashanah. Kamishu Roy Lamino. It's as if you're trusting him to pay you back. Can't Roy Lamino, and since you're trusting him to pay you back, Kamishu. In other words, it's important the transaction takes place verbally. Not allowed to write it. Weren't allowed to write it down because of Rosh Hashanah. But you're believing him to pay you back. Kamishu Roy Lamos, as if it's to give you money, right? So therefore, since you could have given him money, the loan sign he didn't give him. Nasis Rishonim Milveh. So again, this is going to Rabbi Yehuda that although the second transaction can always, the late transaction is always like a credit, but evidently he gave him twice meat on that day, or saying that effect. So if the first one becomes halva, and therefore because it was really a weekday, you just thought it was Rosh Hashanah, Shemitah cancels it. Okay. It was a hard Gemara. Okay, let's go a little bit further. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Boon, the Shem Rav, Hamavas Chaver, somebody who loaned his friend, Amanash Loti Shmitenu Shmita, on the condition that Shmita should not cancel the loan. So here also the Gemara in Shvius has a different girsa. It should be Shvius Misham Toso. We take out this word Ein. Right? We all know why, because it's Masna Mashkosa B'Torah. You can't say that. You can't say Shemitah shouldn't affect us. The Torah said there's Shemitah. How can Shemitah not affect us? So therefore, Shemitah does cancel the loan. Okay? So the Gemara asks a question on this. The Gemara says, wait a minute. What Tanina didn't we learn? Back in our Mishnah. It says that if I loan you money, if the Adam say have to be paid back in 30 days, and the guy said no, it was 10 years, and they're at the Adam are lying, so they have to pay him the difference between what it would be able to pay, what he would pay to keep a loan for 10 years instead of 30 days. So the Bavli also asks the same question which Yerushalmi asked, which is, wait a minute, if it was for 10 years, Shemitah would cancel the loan altogether. So that's the case. They should owe the they don't owe the lova anything. The lova would have come off not having to pay back because Shemitah would have canceled the loan. If anything, they owe the malva money because the malva would never been able to collect because Shemitah would have come in the middle. So how could there be such a scenario as paying the value of keeping a loan for 10 years over 30 days if Shemitah is going to come in the middle and is going to cancel the loan? There's no such thing. There's no value to it. I mean, the lover would never have to. I mean, the value is the entire loan. Actually, the lover would have gotten to keep the entire loan altogether, right? They would have deprived the malveh, and the lover would have they would have deprived the malveh. Yeah, they shouldn't have to pay the lover anything because the lover would have got to keep the money, and they should pay the malveh because it would have deprived the malveh of getting his money back, right? So how do we get around that problem? So there are two different possibilities. Rav Huna Amar is Palgun. There's machlekes. I'm not sure it's a machlekes. Both answers are good answers. But Spalgun not going to change. It's Charamar b'Mavel Amashkon. One said it's talking about where the loan was on collateral, and we know that when a loan is given on collateral, Shemitah doesn't cancel it. Shemitah only cancels the loan which is not at all collected. The loan which is already partially collected because the borrower gave collateral to secure the loan, so then Shemitah doesn't cancel it. So it could be our Mishnah Torah case where there was some collateral, there was a mashkon given. Another possibility, a very simple one, is it's that the lover wrote a prusbul guaranteeing that he was going to pay back that you're allowed that when you have a prusbul, the malva can demand the loan and lover can pay back the loan even though Shemitah has passed. It's actually the malva writes the prusbul, not the lover. So the malva, it's the case of the malva of the principal, and therefore he will be able to demand the loan back after 10 years. So it's a very pretty straightforward answers. I believe that the Bavli gives a different answer. If I recall correctly, the Bavli's answer is that Shemitah is only, or at least one of the answers probably is the Shemitah is only a Mishamet alone, which doesn't have a set time period. A loan, so then when Shemitah comes along, cancels the loan. But a loan which has a set time period, like 10 years, Shemitah doesn't cancel the loan. Why is that? Because during those 10 years, it goes back to the beginning of our Gemara tonight. During those 10 years, the loan can't be collected. It's dormant during those 10 years. So even though Shemitah passes during those 10 years, since it can't be collected during those 10 years, Shemitah doesn't cancel it. Shemitah only cancels loans which are active, not loans which are dormant. The Yerushalmi can't give that answer. Why can Yerushalmi give that answer? Because Yerushalmi said at the beginning, the way we learned it earlier, that even a dormant loan, whenever the lover sees the malveh, he feels bad. He feels, I really should be paying back the loan. So therefore, there's no such thing as a dormant loan, according to the Yerushalmi. Again, the Bible holds a such thing as a dormant loan, a loan which is not operative. And Shemitah doesn't cancel such a loan. Because Shemitah only cancels loans which are active, which are operative. So therefore, if somebody loans a friend for 10 years, Shemitah doesn't cancel that loan, and that's what our Mishnah is talking about. Yerushalmi can't learn that way, because Yerushalmi knows that even dormant loans, there's this concept of the lover feels guilty, he feels he has to pay back. And therefore, there's no such thing really as a dormant loan. There's no such thing as an inactive loan, because lover always feels the shibud, the obligation to pay back the malveh. So therefore, the Yerushalmi has this question from the Mishnah. How do we come up with a case in which a loan for 10 years is not going to be canceled by Shemitah in the middle, and it can't give the answer to the Bali because it's a loan for a certain amount of time? Has to give other answers. Gives two other answers. One is that the malveh was given on collateral, and then Shemitah doesn't cancel it. And the other is that it was given already, there was a principal rating, and that's why Shemitah doesn't cancel it. Okay, I think we'll stop here for today. Again, it was a bit of a tough Gemara today. I'm going to post the shir online again. If you want, you can chazar it. And I hope to see you again next week. Have a great week, guys. Take care.
Also, if the reason that the loan isn't canceled because with collateral it's already partially paid, then what if you partially pay the loan back?
So that would work because
Even if you pay
question.
Say they pay back like $2 of the loan.
Yeah, but that's not because a match is interesting. It's very fascinating difference. The mashkon is as if you paid back all of the loan partially. But if you pay back a certain amount of loan, the rest of the loan is not paid back at all. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm.
When you give a mashkon, it's like a partial